Good morning. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Excellent. Wonderful. Fantastic. Right. So thanks, Stephen. Thanks, everybody, for coming. I am Skip Fidura. For those of you who know me, I got a new job title for Christmas. I am now the Insight and Strategy Director for Dotmailer. I don't know what that means. Funny enough, it's a big day for Dotmailer, I think. I'm pretty sure. This is our 9th anniversary of being publicly listed. And the marketing team always introduces me as the face of Dotmailer. I do a lot of the public speaking. And in those 9 years, we've gone from a 12 million pound company to almost a 300 million pound company. And the face is just getting worse. So there we are. There you have it. I'm going to talk about the power of automation in B2B marketing. How many of you, hand on heart, or hold up your hand, I'm a B2B marketer? Okay. I'm a B2C marketer. Okay. Cool. Because you're not coming in with a lot of preconceived notions about B2B marketing. I'm going to hopefully set the scene. This is Piccadilly Circus in London in the mid-'60s. It's pretty unrecognizable compared to now, except for the Coke sign, still the biggest one. And why do I show this? Well, back in the day, B2B marketing was very, very different, right? Back in the 60s, we bought differently. I'm making no commentary on whether this was right or wrong, so please don't start tweeting negative things about me. But back in the 60s, the B2C shoppers tended to be women. The B2B shoppers tended to be men. B2C shoppers, bought very similarly to the way they do today. B2B shoppers bought over lunch, on the golf course. You had to provide a lot more content. They didn't have this. A PowerPoint then. How many of you were born after 1980? Okay, so I'm just trying to figure out who the millennials are. They didn't have this. They had this book. Think of it as an iPad, only with paper. And you would flip these pages over in this book to go through your presentation. Very, very different world. This was the era of the Mad Men. This is a quote from David Ogilvy. The consumer isn't a moron, she's your wife. Now remember, this is the 60s. Things were very different. David Ogilvy also said, you wouldn't lie to your wife, don't lie to mine. And I met David Ogilvy's wife, and you wouldn't lie to her, I can assure you. But this is the era when marketing content really started. This, back in the 60s, is when our lives started to change. And I'm happy to say that when this quote was written down, even I wasn't alive yet. This is Piccadilly Circus today, still have the big Coke. Can you imagine trying to sell Coke Zero in the 60s? Things have changed. We buy differently, right? I'm speaking at a conference in a couple of weeks, how to market to millennials, which is going to be just fascinating. Because what people seem to forget is millennials aren't these spotty, annoying, self-enfranchised, over-coddled kids, right? They're many of you. Millennials own homes. They have their own children. And they buy things. And they buy things for businesses. They want the same experiences in business that they get at work. Now, another little stat that is going to freak you out. If you are selling B2B and you're using email to help sell yourself B2B, you are emailing the most savvy email recipients in the country. 50% of all consumers do not check email at work at all. Most of them don't have a work email address. There are loads and loads and loads of professions where you don't have email. I know all of us are sitting there thinking, really? How could you live without a work email? But there's loads. So if you are communicating via email in the B2B space, you have to be on top of your game. So whereas before there was a big divide between how you marketed B2B and B2C, today the divide is a lot less, but B2B marketers still have to be better because you're going after the best and the brightest. But don't worry, it's not that sad. And I'm going to walk you through how to do that. So the top 5 B2B email automation programs. These are not specific to B2B e-commerce, but we'll have some e-commerce examples in there. So in case you're one of those, I want a picture of all of it. That's the picture. Nobody wants the picture? Fine. So the first one, product-based programs. You are selling, if you are selling a product, in the previous presentation, pharmacy, restaurants, right? Maybe not pharmaceuticals in this country, but most products are easily replaceable. You sell the same thing that somebody else sells, just with a different label. 70% of B2B shoppers say they will leave, switch providers if they get bad service. And they'll do it quickly. And I can tell you, as a B2B provider, that is totally true, right? It doesn't take a whole lot of bad service before you start having those very senior level, well, we're going to have to make a change discussions. And in e-commerce, it's going to happen even faster. So what you're selling here is the product, of course, but also making everything easier, making everything better. What you're selling, if you're selling a replaceable product, is we've got better service, we've got better delivery times. You may get a better price, but competing on price is not a winner. We're going to get you the product there easier and faster, right? So in the email, you might want to think about a replenishment. Why wait for the chef to tell you what he's out of or she's out of when you can say proactively, we suspect, based on your purchasing patterns, you're running out of this. Click here to order it. So they don't even have to, again, we're back to, instead of them phoning in, instead of them going to their computer, logging in, entering in a bunch of stuff, they've got their phones with them, email's right there, bang. And maybe it's not email, right? Maybe it's you've got an app. Maybe it's an in-app push. Maybe it's SMS. Doesn't necessarily have to be email. So there's some things to consider. Think about the timing. Think about the context of what people are doing and when they're doing it, and deliver the message when it's best for them. Think about, again, with context, what device are they going to be on? Some research that we did, something like 79% of B2C e-commerce brands have some sort of mobile payment option on their website. But their emails aren't optimized for the mobile device. So why would you think that a consumer is going to sit there and go, well, this email looks rubbish on my phone, but I'm sure the site looks great? You wouldn't, right? Think about where people are going to be, and then think about how to make that relevant. When you're talking about product, it's not just sell, sell, sell. It's how can we help you? How can we make it better? Here are other ways you could use that product, or here are some other products that you don't buy from us that are complementary. So this is kind of the stalwart of B2B marketing, right? Nurture programs. How do you get somebody through to the next step? It's just having a conversation. Somebody mentioned earlier about, do you have a field marketing team, and how reluctant are they to start to switch to digital? What you've got to do to convince them that this is going to be okay is the conversation that they used to have over the coffee, over a desk, in a boardroom, is the same conversation that you're going to have digitally. It's just about having human conversations, looking at the digital body language, and reacting to that. So here's an interesting one, not an e-commerce example. This is Roadrunner. They do B2B auto cover. They can't give a quote online. They just can't. So they're all about get somebody to call in. This email is, we know your policy is about to expire. Give us a call. We'll give you the best quote. All they want to do is get that phone call. And once they've got the phone call, they can take it from there. Yeah? Same kind of thing. The timing is critical. We know your policy is about to expire. We know you're about to be out of that product. We know that your contract's coming up for renewal. Guess what? I think I'm supposed to use this line somewhere else, but it fits in here perfectly. Every divorce starts with the first date. Right? I mean, okay, it's almost February 14th. That may be a little cynical. And I'm happily married, so it's easy for me to say. But a contract renewal doesn't start when the contract's about to expire. It started when you first started to sell to that person, when they were just a cold prospect. So you can't wait until the very end and then be like, oh, your contract's about to expire. Re-sign, re-quote, re-whatever. So this takes planning. If you are going to have these human conversations at scale, you have to sit down, you have to think about what are the touch points, what's the journey, what conversation do I want to be having? It's really simple for me to stand here and say, well, all you want to do is pretend the customer's standing right here in front of you and say, they've just done this. What are you going to say next? And that's really easy for me to stand here and say. And you might be sitting there going, yeah, I can do that. And then you start to think about it and you're like, wait, that's really complicated. That's really hard. And in the B2B world, the fundamental difference still between B2B and B2C is B2C, huge volumes, really simple journeys. B2B, smaller volumes, much more complicated journeys, much more complicated ways of talking to people because, as has been said over and over again, the buyer may not be the decision maker, and you're going to talk to them differently. Look at your results. Now, email, it's easy to track. Everybody talks about opens and clicks. We've got something like 4,000 clients. We have one client that makes money on opens and clicks. So opens and clicks are great. I'm not saying ignore them, but that's not where you're making money. Make sure you are looking at your results where the cash is. And if you can, and if you're not doing this already, start to implement some lead scoring so you really understand where somebody is, how much they like you, what their brand affinity is, what their affinity is to your brand. This is where I was supposed to talk about the divorce thing. But, so it still holds true. And I have to say that this was a presentation originally put together by one of my colleagues who does not have kids, right? Anybody who has kids looks at this picture and you remember that day, if your kids are older, and you're like, God, the heartbreak comes back again and again. But people will leave. People will become unengaged. People will become disinterested in what you sell. And in the B2B space, people will change jobs. So it's not necessarily a matter of, oh, they're not interested in the product. They're not there anymore. I can imagine, so Rebecca used to work for us, now she works for Magento. I would expect that she is still getting emails at her Dotmailer account. I hope we've done something clever like put an autoresponder on there or something, but she's changed jobs. She doesn't care about what somebody wants to sell to Dotmailer anymore that she might have used to buy for us. Now, she may care about that in her new role, don't know. So when you're looking at retention programs, think about all the combinations of things you go through. This is a retention program for BP in their corporate card, fuel card program. That's pretty straightforward, right? Actually, it really is quite straightforward. Because at the end of the day, you start in and you just keep going across until the answer to the question is yes, and then you drop down. And when you drop down, it's really quite simple. So it's drop down. They've put a random split in there so you can test two different messages. And the first thing is about reducing your paperwork, how efficient, how easy it is when you have the BP card. The second one is convenience for your fleet drivers. There's always a fuel station right nearby. And then you just keep going forward. What's really interesting about this program is they look at people who don't open and then they keep going back to them, right? Because that's the other thing. Everybody's busy. And we have, as email marketers, we have this belief that, yeah, everybody opens every email we send. That's rubbish. You open every email if it's sent from maybe your parents, but my parents would tell you I don't do that. Certainly your partner, your boss, right? After that, if I happen to not be too busy when your email happens to cross my phone, then maybe not. It's probably a really rubbish thing for an email marketer to say, isn't it? And next thing I'll start promoting one of our competitors. So, if every divorce starts with the first date, every happy marriage starts with the first date too, right? Think retention from the off. Don't sell, sell, sell. Add value. Give people a reason to open your emails. Make them want to stay with your program. But also acknowledge that they are going to go, and come up with a way to either win them back or stop mailing them. So, you're wasting money. Okay, an email costs a fraction of a p per send, but it's still a waste of money. Events. Everybody goes to events. We're all here at one today. Many of you might be thinking, we do B2B e-commerce, I don't do events. But you probably do, and in one way, shape, or form, right? Either it's a trade show or some sort of expo where you go and promote your products. You can do one of those things, have a stand, go have people on the stand, people will come by, ooh, their products are cool. How much more efficient and effective would that be if you had booked appointments, right? Email is a great way to manage that. You get people excited, you get people engaged initially, then you can convert them to the event, which you can do all online, and then you know when the event is, and you've got their details, so it's just a series of automated programs, keeping them motivated, making sure they turn up. How many people today came just for the awesome breakfast? Oh. And more fool us, I didn't see it anyway, in the columns leading up to this, that there was going to be an awesome breakfast. We did an event yesterday. Again, no mention of the breakfast. So I had breakfast at the hotel breakfast, 87 pounds for a croissant. Get to the venue, bacon buddies. But of course I was full. Really disappointed. The other nice thing if you're doing this all online is you can segment really well, right? You can do stuff digitally that you can't do face-to-face. In a face-to-face environment, you can't scan the room and be like, I know you're one of our best customers, come over here for the free champagne. The rest of y'all, there's water over there, right? Because you'd be like, yeah, free champagne. Everybody else is like, that's rubbish. We buy from them too. The only brands that can get away with that is airlines, right? And they make you walk through the good part to get to the part where we all have to sit. And last but certainly not least, you might think that this is silly. Why didn't you put welcome programs up front? Well, a couple of reasons. The first one is when you're approaching an automation project, it is too easy to start at the beginning. It's too easy to say, right, this is my customer journey. Map it this way, who knows how you want to map it. Start at the beginning and go all the way through to the end. And that's great, right? Except, sorry, cameraman's like, wait, where's it going? The problem is this. That's not where you're going to make the most money. Welcome programs have a huge ROI, don't get me wrong. But don't start at the beginning. Start where you've got the biggest problem, or where you have the biggest opportunity. If that's the welcome program, then that's fine. That's a great place to start. So, the other reason I put welcome programs at the end is so many people forget them, and I wanted to make sure if, the recency effect, you would remember how important welcome programs are. How many of you have met somebody new today? Everybody, right? How did you do that? You walk up, shake hands, hi, I'm Skip, what's your name, where do you work? I work here. At that point, you probably have enough info to start a conversation. But if you don't, you ask one more question. That's what your welcome program is. Your welcome program is your introduction to your new customer, to your new prospect, where you can start to ask them questions so that you have enough information to have that human conversation at scale, conversation. Yeah, anyway. Because that's all we're trying to do. You don't want to ask too many questions. You don't want to be that person that asks too many questions up front. You just want to ask enough. And your welcome program allows you to do that. And as you can see from this example, it doesn't have to be a one-hit wonder. Think about Every human conversation that you have, every human interaction that you have, you met somebody new today. You know a little bit about them. At some point during the day, you're going to ask yourself, should I link in with that person? Is that person interesting enough, stroke useful enough to me, potentially, to link in with them, right? If you're in sales, you're going to link in with everybody. If you're on the buy side, you're going to be like, no, maybe, right? So it's not a one-hit wonder. Think about how you're going to build this relationship, how it's going to grow over time. And I am pushing it on time, so I'm going to wrap up. The points to consider on your welcome program. It's a thank you, first and foremost. Somebody is just giving you their data. Have you ever given somebody a business card and have them not say thank you? If you have, the first thing you do with their card is bin it, right? In some cultures, if you don't say thank you, you are in for a world of heartache, right? And like the thank you is so ritualistic. This is your chance to say thank you. They've given you their data. This is your chance to introduce yourself again. Remind them why they are interested in your brand. Remind them why they should do business with you. Remind them why they want to give you information. And then don't just sell. I put down tutorials because I couldn't think of anything, a general word for it, but add value. Why should they be shopping with you? Don't sell. Give them some value add. So, I'm going to wrap up with this as the key takeaway. B2B, all marketing automation, is a huge project, right? And it is really easy to sit in a room with a consultant like me, get a big whiteboard, draw out this enormous customer journey and all the automation that you're going to do on it. And then, the consultant will put that in a nice PowerPoint presentation and we'll come back and we'll present it back to you. At some point during that process, somebody on your team is going to look at that and go, so you're suggesting that in addition to what I'm already doing, you want me to write 95 new emails. And it won't happen. And that project will flounder. Have that big conversation. Have that big thinking. Think big. Find one place where you can start. Hopefully today you've learned something from me or from some of the other speakers. When you go back to your offices this afternoon, take that one thing you learned and start. Implement it today, right now. And then scale quickly. That's me done. Thank you very much.